Okay, welcome everyone. I'm Danielle Vickers with the Montana Campus Network for Civic Engagement. Welcome to the Centering Indigenous Knowledge series. We are a statewide network of colleges and universities that support civic and community engagement. Our theme this fall is Native American art, creative connections to tribal histories and cultures. In our previous sessions, we have heard from 5 student artists and writers, as well as Taryn Laskin, who we heard from last week. And if you missed those are up on our YouTube channel, MT Engage. Today we have Dylan Running Crane, who we are super excited to hear from. Next week will be the final segment of this series, hearing from Chris Latre. Our artwork this year is by Stella Nall called Ilusacha, To Be Split. And you can see her artwork at stellanall.com. She also has a show up at the Missoula Art Museum if you are in town at all. I want to thank our sponsors. So our presenting sponsor is Humanities Montana. And additionally, we thank RJs and Associates, Reach Higher Montana, Montana State University, Campus Compact, and the University of Montana. If you're attending today, please know that it's because of our generous sponsors. And if you have the wherewithal, we'd love it if you made a donation to a tribal college in Montana. And now I will hand it over to Dr. Carla Bird with the University of Montana.
Good afternoon. My name is Carla, and I have the privilege of introducing Dylan. Dylan is a writer and musician from Browning, Montana. As a citizen of the Amskapii Pikunii tribe, she has been writing music for about 10 years. Over the past 2 years, Dylan has been performing solo work. In that time, she's performed all over Montana, from Missoula to Butte, from Glacier National Park to her beloved home in Browning. Dylan's work centers stories of the underrepresented, with lyrics balancing the introspective with the political. She says, I write stories about human experiences, like the guilt one feels when they kill a mouse, but I also write songs meant to be played at protests. Dylan's presentation will focus on songwriting, specifically on elements that can be used to set the listener in a particular place or mindset. You can find some of Dylan's work at dylanrunningcranemusic.bandcamp.com. So I'll hand it over to Dylan at this time. We'll also do some questions at the very end. So as we near the end, feel free to put any questions you may have for Dylan in the chat box. Thanks.
Cool. Oki, Nixuquix, Nistunitan Kuspupi, Sakama Makan. Hi guys. Hello relatives. My name is Dylan Running Crane. I just gave you guys my indigenous name and then the Blackfeet pronunciation of Running Crane. So my indigenous name, my Blackfeet name is Spoopy, which just means turtle. And then Sakama Makan is running crane. Or actually, I think the more accurate translation of that word is crane runner, which probably would have been a cooler last name. We had some technical difficulties, I guess. I couldn't figure out how to share my screen on Zoom. So I believe that either Carla or Danielle is going to share that for me. Sweet. Okay, cool. Yeah, when I was brainstorming what I wanted this presentation to look like and what my slideshow was going to look like, I couldn't really think of very many visuals, given that I'm a musician and kind of infamous for not wanting people to take my photo, especially when I'm performing. So I doodled a lot for you guys on my slides. I hope that you enjoy them. Yeah, I titled my presentation "Songwriting in Indigenous." I want to talk a little bit later about what it means to be like an Indigenous person speaking the English language. I'm trying really hard to learn my Blackfeet language, but being Indigenous informs and shapes and is all around my art and songwriting. So that's why I called it "Songwriting in Indigenous." Yeah, we can go on to the next slide. Cool. Yeah, just brief overview for my presentation. I'm going to talk a little bit about myself. I won't make that too long. I'll try to give, I'll give my credentials as a songwriter, and then move on to like my identity as an Indigenous person. I'll talk about identities, kind of the way that I categorize identity, um, and how it informs my art. Then I'll talk a little bit about my creative process, which that term I think gives an added sophistication to what I do with my songwriting. But I'll try to lay it out as clear as I can. And then at the end, if we got some time, I'll share a couple songs. I provided the lyrics in the slideshow to those songs, and we can kind of talk about those lyrics, which I think will be the funnest part. The sound, the audio quality might not be the best given that it's through Zoom, but I think that we will survive. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is my about me. This photo is taken at this summer's Fire in the Mountains. I opened sang on the first night of this festival. It's a heavy metal music festival. I am not a heavy metal singer, but yeah, I just wanted to talk about that photo because if you are into metal or into hanging out on the Blackfeet Reservation, you should definitely uh, make it a point to go next year. So I am Amskapii Pikunii. I am Blackfeet. Um, I love being Blackfeet. Blackfeet are the best. uh, they're tough as hell. And I'm a singer-songwriter for about 10 years. So I say about 10 years. I've probably been writing music longer than that. But really only calling them songs and titling them and for about 10 years. And working artist for about 3. I realized after I put in my bio that it's coming up on 3 years that I've been performing pretty regularly. And I also wanted to include Stella Nall, the artist that was just mentioned, is in my band. We actually did form a band in 2018. And we did a couple shows then. Stella's my second guitarist, and she also frequently plays the melodica. That band is comprised of me and my cousin Tom, who's my neighbor, lives right over there, and Stella, and then our good friend Katie is our drummer. So we during that time we did perform a couple of shows. I think we played like 2 in 2019 and then like one masked live stream version in 2021. And then kind of went on hiatus for a long time, but we're back. We're playing shows. We got a show next week at the Elks Lodge on the 21st, and that's just a quick plug. So yeah, I have other performing experiences beyond just being a solo artist, which I've been doing for the past 3 years. Like I said, I primarily play in Missoula, but I've played in Butte, played in Great Falls, I played in Glacier a couple of times. So west side of Montana is kind of where you could find me if I'm singing on a stage. Um, I grew up in Browning, Montana, on the Blackfeet Reservation, and I love coming from Browning. A song that I'm going to sing later is about Browning. It's a love song for Browning. I really like the reactions that I get when I tell people that I'm from Browning. And just growing up there, I think being a reser um, is one aspect of Native identity that I'm going to talk pretty heavily on. Yeah, more to come. And I've lived in Missoula for the past 7 years. I started going to school here in 2018, and I originally went for film, and then COVID happened, and I changed to creative writing, and then I got bored, and I've just been doing the music thing. Um, Not included on my About Me page is that I'm a preschool teacher. I love teaching. In the summer, I teach uh, ages 7 to 14. I teach them in music camps called rock camps. Um, and I love doing that. That's like the best part of my year. Yeah, so I love teaching. I'm a musician, and I live in my apartment with my dog and my partner. That's me. We can move on to the next slide. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to talk about identity, and this is kind of, I think that there are many ways that, identity can be categorized, split up, thought about. I think that identity is mostly the way that you understand yourself and how that maps on to the context of the world around you. So these are the forms of identity that I feel make the most sense for me and how my art maps onto them. Um, Cultural and familial, that photo right there is the OG running crane. It's my grandpa. Uh, and I love that photo so much. I love the photos of him because he always looks really freaking annoyed. Um, just like so annoyed that somebody stuck him in like white man clothes and took his picture. Um, anyway, so yeah, cultural and familial is definitely a huge part of my identity. And personal, that's a photo of me as a baby. My sister Lindy's holding me. Um, my personal identity, that's like kind of what Carla was saying at the beginning, sort of the more like introspective songs that I write. Um, yeah. And then I think as a Native person, specifically a Native people, we have to consider our legal status and our political identities, kind of more than a lot of people. I drew I drew a little tribal ID card on there. It says 50 out of 100. That's a reference to blood quantum. And I do kind of just want to take a moment to talk about blood quantum real quick. Uh, because I carried my tribal ID around for 24 years of my life and never really considered getting a different form of ID um, until I lost my tribal ID and had to get a Montana State one real quick. But I remember showing people my tribal ID and like showing them that on the back there's this number um, that basically says I'm half an Indian. And blood quantum is something I always want to say, and I don't really know what audience I'm speaking to here. There's a good chance all of you know what I'm talking about, but um, I always want to make it clear that blood quantum is not a cultural thing. It is not a native thing. It's not a traditional indigenous practice. It's something that was imposed on our people, and it is a system of breeding out the Indianness of a person and the supposed Indianness, right? There's no way that they're measuring our blood. They're not taking blood out of our body and, putting it in a robot, I don't know, and checking to see who's more Indian. It's it's trying to break the connection that a person has to their culture. And it's very political, and it's a system that harms. It's not a system that helps. And so just to have this like literally carrying it around in my back pocket for most of my life. Having that acknowledgement that like this continuation of trying to get rid of the Indian um, was just a constant, reminder of something that at the moment that I became cognizant of blood quantum, was reminded of that every time I pulled out my ID. And I just wanted to talk about that. I wanted to pause and talk about blood quantum. I'm going to talk a little bit about reservation life too, and but that'll come in a little bit. Could go to the next slide. Cool. I get to talk about my dad and my family. So my little drawing there is sort of all of the layers, right, of how I feel I'm connected to my indigeneity. Not all of them. That's a couple of them. Um, thanks, Sydney. um, yeah. So I did the little doodle there, and I'm going to talk about my family and my culture. So, and music. How all of this comes back around to music. So my dad grew up pretty traditional. His dad, so my paternal grandfather, died when he was quite young, when my dad was quite young. So he was raised, even before his dad passed away, he was raised largely by his grandparents. And so he grew up with Blackfeet language just all around him constantly. And my dad, when I was growing up, was constantly singing Indian. And there's no better way that I can figure out how to say that phrase of like what he was actually doing. I used to say singing powwow, but he wasn't powwow singing, right? He was singing in Indian. And so we grew up with my dad. He sings when he prays, sings when he's bored, sings when he's picking sweetgrass, sings to his grandbabies. Um, and I never became a singer in that capacity. I never sang like him. But what it did, I think, when I think back on it, is created a connection for me that music and like the sacred are the same. And so this next bullet point kind of goes into this. So I kind of have beef with people that call like singing Indian the way that I'm describing it, chanting. And I have nothing wrong with chanting. I think that there's lots of beautiful cultures that practice many different kinds of chants, but I would argue that singing in Indian is not chanting. I think the reason being is that I think that chanting suggests or maybe necessitates some sort of repetition, but there is a rise and fall action to singing Indian. And I don't know. I wanted to make that point because I want to make the point that there's an intentionality to singing in Indian, and they're not. So there's no language being spoken there, right? Except the language of music, and which is a little bit, I think, interesting and like antithetical to a presentation that's supposed to be specifically about songwriting. But yeah, like I said, I want it. It makes all music have that connection to the sacred for me. Um, okay, so that's one part familial and culture, and I could probably go on forever, but I want to get back into the music aspect of this and the songwriting aspect of this. So personal, my grandpa was in AIM, the American Indian Movement, and so this is not the case for everybody. But my personal sense of indigeneity is tied to Native activism. And that comes from my grandpa, right? As much as my dad was the facilitator of things like sweat lodge and pipe raising and smudging and all of that, like my grandpa also was an AIM. And that has like, so my grandfather was really influential in my family, and that sense of activist. He was in San Francisco in the 60s as a Native man. So like that still echoes throughout my family and throughout our sense of being, belonging, identity. Um, and that really informed the taste in music that I would come to love and enjoy, and then the kind of music that I would later end up creating. I do not write strictly protest songs. I have in the past, like, year, maybe year and a half, been trying to be more intentional with my lyricism and um, use it as a form of catharsis for the evil that I see in the world. And so I write a lot of angry Indian songs, and I write a lot of angry songs, period. But I try to sort of ground them in a folk sensibility, I guess. Um, yeah. And then going back to like sort of the legal, right? The legal, the political, the so if we're to look at like if there's like these two giant factions of indigeneity, and one of them is like before settler colonialism, and we have all of these beautiful ways to attach ourselves to that. We have language and dance and song and ceremony and connection to land and matriarchy and family. Um, and then we have, you know, after settler colonialism. Um, I think that's the part of the identity that I have really taken in with both arms as a recently. Because as much of it is like as much of it is destruction and starvation and death, it is as much resiliency. And coming from Browning, coming from the reservation, and seeing it every day, the tangible effects, the repercussions of settler colonialism, seeing it in the dogs and in the buildings and in the plastic bags that are everywhere, and seeing it in my school and seeing it in my in my family and seeing it in other people's families, and um, it makes you all the more grateful to have to still be here, so that my last name still keeps going. um, because because nobody, no one would choose to have built a town where Browning is. Uh, if you were choosing to found a town, I don't think that you would pick the windiest place on earth. And so Browning is not, it's not like our people, it's not like our land, it's not, but it is what we have now. And it's going to keep getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And I am just really proud to be from the res. I'm really proud of coming from Browning. I really like when people, uh, quick story, when I came back from Fire in the Mountains, actually, I went to the grocery store and I'm pals with this older lady that works there. And she asked me what I was doing all weekend. And I said, I was up on the res. And she said, what on earth were you doing up there? And I said, that's where I'm from. Um, I'm really proud of where I come from. And with that, we can go on to the next slide, and I can talk about something a little bit happier, which is my creative process. Instruments and inspirations. I just wanted to talk a little bit about instruments. I wanted to talk a little bit about how I sort of start generating a song, because um, I don't know. I feel like there are artists that use their instruments sort of like ends in and of themselves, and that's beautiful. I wish that I wish that I could be that kind of artist sometimes. Because I've been playing guitar since I was 11, and I should be wildly more proficient at it than I am. But I'm just not. What I use these instruments for is primarily to find a melody that works. A melody that works for what song I'm trying to write, for what feeling I'm trying to get out, for what question I'm trying to answer. So like I play my acoustic guitar, right? Um, this is a new, not new, but new to me. My brother gifted me this guitar recently. It was his. Anyway, my acoustic, it's like powerful, but it's simple, right? And so like it's really good for finding those like 3 chord songs that get to the point, you know, but there's no shrinking because they're simple songs, right? It's still a powerful instrument. Um, Electric guitar, I have one electric guitar that I've had since I was 15, and I rarely use it, but when I do use it, it's sort of just it's I feel like I can find more nuanced like feelings and tones with an electric guitar. And then I use piano or keys to write more like introspective and personal songs. Those will usually end up being performed on an acoustic guitar. But I don't know, something about piano that gets me in my feels. Um, Inspirations, my family and my family history. I recently wrote one of the most depressing songs that I've ever written, um, about a little girl, a nameless little girl. I don't provide a name in the song for a reason. About a little girl in the boarding schools, um, and that was entirely uh, inspired based on stories that I've heard of my grandma being in boarding school. Margaret. Um, I said this is guitar is also named Margaret. Um, w- One of the things that I learned when I was trying to do creative writing um, was that you have to constantly be observing, and I've taken that into my songwriting as well. Listening to people talk, people say some weird stuff and really interesting stuff and cool stuff and do weird things. And I've written a lot of songs just like from hearing someone say something and then writing a song about it. I listen to music every day. I'm pretty sure that most people listen to music every single day, but I specifically listen to music that inspires me, especially when I'm with the kind of music that I'm currently trying to write, right? So Um, right now, it's kind of like the old folk artists of like the 50s and 60s. I've been listening to a lot of Phil Ox, um, but also just like trying to find new stuff that inspires me. Recently, I found this artist who describes her style as glitchcore, which I think is really interesting. It's a lot of like looping and it's really ethereal sounding, and kind of like to experiment with that. I try to write as often as I can. I used to be one of those people that was like, I'm gonna write every day, and then I wouldn't write on a day, and then I'd feel horrible about myself and just like not want to write again. So trying to not let what's the saying? Perfect be the enemy of the good. I try to write as often as I can, even if that's just in like my notes app. Um, Underserved and underrepresented people inspire me all the time. The resiliency of oppressed people is beautiful, and I want to be part of the fight that makes it so that they don't have to keep being resilient, that they can just be happy and comfortable and live a life that everybody deserves. Um, and then other inspirations, the political now and the political then. Um, my partner of 7 years is the most politically aware person that I know, and uh, to a fault sometimes. It's kind of all he wants to talk about, but it does come with the benefit of being constantly up to date and in the loop. And that plus reading and finding the catharsis, right? Like finding I believe that you shouldn't be writing a song if that song doesn't feel good or important or cathartic. Like there's something in your body telling you to not write that song. And a vast majority of the songs that I've been writing feel important. Important to me, at least. You know, they're important to me because they are cathartic. Um, okay, I rambled a little bit there. Okay. Next slide. This is my song. Okay, like I said, um, audio might not be great, but that's why the lyrics are here. I'll sing it and then talk a little bit about the lyrics. And yeah, I got 3 songs. I think each one of them kind of demonstrate maybe a little bit of those identity categories that I was talking about, maybe. All right. Cool. This song is called Ghosts in Our Town. Right. Driving down Highway 93 is down the car trailer lane. In my illegal car, looking both ways, even on a one-way street, new ends, new rules at 9 and 3. I'm not even sure where we go. Who breaks the rules, who tracks them down? What's with these ghosts all over our town? Who breaks the rules, who tracks them down? Sure are transparent even without their shroud. Suddenly, my memory does not serve no eye. Can I tell you what I've heard? You've got the wrong guy. Take it up with your other boss. Wait till you have to take it up with God. Prepare your alibi. Who makes the rules, who tracks them down? Would you believe that if there were no one else around? Who makes the rules, who tracks them down? The call may be coming from inside your house. Be for the war. Paint ourselves in color. Who makes the lies? Who burns the books? Whose crimes do we all overlook? How many of us till it's too late? How many of us till the whole world decays? Cool. So yeah, that was a song that I wrote actually. Um, after quite a long time of not being able to write anything. I was going through a really long writer's block. Could not think of the word. I like this song a lot because I am directly indicting ICE in it. The first verse there, driving down the highway, I was being followed by a cop when my mom's car did not have insurance, and I was that paranoia sort of started inspiring me, right? So it's about paranoia, who makes the rules, who tracks them down, authoritative figures that induce paranoia and make people feel unsafe. What's with these ghosts all over our town? I'm comparing ICE to another party that notoriously wore sheets. Sure are transparent even without their shrouds. Can see right through you, buddy. And then suddenly my memory does not serve. I'm not going to help somebody kidnap somebody. So that whole verse, right? And then take it up with your other boss. Wait till you have to take it up with God. What kind of conscience do you have? Sort of indictment. And then I'll just jump really quickly to the bridge. So before the war, we paint ourselves in color. I had read an article quite a while ago that was detailing that there's actually evidence that the Greek statues that we're familiar with were actually painted. And that we like white America, white society really likes to strip things of color. And I want my side of the aisle, I want my army to be filled with color. And so generally just a love of color. Who makes the laws, who burns the books, whose crimes do we all overlook? How many of us until it's too late? How many of us until the whole world's a cage? I think that's pretty self-explanatory with that one. Okay, we could go into the next one. And Danielle, how are we doing on time?
We are at 12:41.
Okay.
So we have some time. You're good.
Sweet. Okay. I'll sing my next song then. Next slide. That's cool. Yeah. I'm gonna tell you what this song is about before I sing it, just really briefly. Mr. Peter, I am referencing Peter Lafarge. He was a folk singer in the 50s and 60s. And he wasn't very well known. And he wrote most of his songs were about the story of the American Indian. And he was really good at it. His songs were laced with empathy and understanding. But he was a white man. And his songs, actually quite a few of them, I think 3 or 4, made it onto Johnny Cash's Bitter Tears album. Or Johnny Cash covers them, or does his own version of them. And so this is a song about, Mr. Peter, I would have adopted you. Man, you could have been cousin. But also, there's a difference between having empathy for something and having the lived experience of something. And so this is just a song for him. It's not a criticism and it's not a praise. We must appear, let me sing you a song. Ask you a question before daylights go. Is there something in you that I need to see? Try to be more like you and I don't want to be me. Please, Master Peter, will you lend me your hand? Tell me your secrets and I'll do what I can. Skin's white as snow, but you wanna be fair. How deep will you cut? How much blood will you shed? See, Mr. Peter, I'm kinda confused. You hatched out and lucky, and look what you choose. Old grandma's crying and dogs in the sand. And your heart torn out, spread on the land. See, Mr. Peter, you can't take this when the ugly and the bitter still dragging their feet. I think that you're trying, and I think that you know you just can't be an Indian if your age don't grow. He's Mr. Peter, that's been the case for me. He rises up, and I just can't see anything else but monsters and thieves. I'll break it down soon. I'll be free. Please, Mr. Peter, let me leave you this soul. Now how to live it in when you wanna be alone. So think that you're trying, I think that you know. You just can't be an Indian if your love don't blow. You just can't be an Indian if your love don't blow. You just can't be an Indian if your love don't blow. Sweet. I like that song. It's fun to sing. Yeah, that song's, it's also just like, I had a lot of people this year ask me what's the difference between cultural appropriation and cultural appreciation. And I think that the answer is really nuanced, and I think that I tried to answer it with this song. Yeah, I'll sing my last song, and then we can do questions, I guess. This next song, this last song, if you want to go on to the next slide, Danielle. Thank you. This is my Browning song. I think I gushed enough about why I love coming from Browning, but I end all of my sets with this song. I've done that for about like 2 solid years now that I've ended all of my sets with this song. And it's kind of like a lullaby. It's a waltzy lullaby. So it's really tender, right? It's a tender song. It makes me feel tender. It makes me feel love, and I think that those are things that aren't often attributed to Browning, and they should be. All right, here's Browning. Back as the shoulder, keep on my heel, keep tripping me up, I scrape my knees over the ground. I still bleed for the rest of my good time. When I left to roll with goodbye to my first love. I drank, I drove away, bliss. Should I forget soon? Wind, oh, wind, lead me, keep Sky open wide, now please come back, dear. And let the shape and sound of the lost and all. I'll build up the fire out in those trees, forage my food and burn the leaves just to find my way back home. I guess this all the road could keep by all my feet. Be tripping me up, I scrape my feet over the ground. Dies the plea for the rest of my good time. Sweet. I'm going to go into my last slide. It just has my Bandcamp on it. I've only got a couple of songs on there that are recorded by an actual professional, and then the rest of them are demos. But I'm hoping to sign on pretty soon to a local label that will help me get some more records out there. So yeah, thanks guys. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, Dylan. We have one question from Suzanne. She says, can you explain what you mean when you say you ground your angry songs with folk sensibility?
Yeah. So I would say that like folk songs, like my folkiest song that I played in that little collection there was my Mr. Peter song. And when I wrote that song, I was I was feeling a lot of anger. Well, not to Peter Lafarge in particular, just in general to uh, the phenomenon of cultural appropriation. Sorry. And then here was this like folk singer, this folk artist, that was doing the work that I was kind of hoping to see in other people. And so I took all of this like anger and this rage and put it to something that was grounded in history. It's a really sort of it's three chords, and the only time that I play the D chord is when I switch between the verses. So I don't know, there's something meditative about folk songs. There's something meditative about the simplicity of them. And so it's channeling all of these angry, complicated feelings into something simple, but kind of like train like, like it just keeps rolling, There's something that feels good about that. So that's where the grounding comes in.
Let's see. We have, so Stella was is here. So she gave a
Ah!
shout out. Sydney said, I loved your doodles. Lots of folks are saying beautiful and giving lots of accolades. Eleanor says, thank you for your powerful words and with your music and wonderful spoken word and presentation. Great job. Suzanne says, I took a pic of the Zoom slide with you in a little video and your lyrics. Would it be okay to post this pic on Facebook feed? I would love for others to discover you.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Shelby says, thank you. Um, Virginia says, Jane says, great job from Wisconsin. Virginia Reeves says, not a question, but Dylan, do you know about the writing residency in Butte called Dear Butte? I think you'd get along great with the director, Christy Hayes, and it's an awesome opportunity to work on your art.
Oh wow. No, I haven't heard of that specifically. I did do some work with Butte, the Butte Archives about 2 years ago. That was really fun. I love Butte, so I'll definitely look into that.
Nice. Hazel says, do you have a creative goal or two you would be willing to share?
Ooh, putting out more music for sure is the biggest one. I have a wonderful friend, Anthony Johnson, who recorded my EP, and then the demos that I have on my Bandcamp was recorded by my brother Joseph Running Crane. Um, and so doing more work with them for sure. Anthony's a rapper, and we've actually brainstormed many times doing like a folk rap album together, which I think would be really cool. Um, but I'm also, as you can see by my doodles throughout my slideshow, I also really like illustration and drawing. And I'm hoping that I can work with my sister pretty soon, Haley Running Crane, to do some sort of Blackfeet language illustrations and stuff like that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So we have one last comment from Raven. Thank you for sharing. Excited to check out your music all the way from California. Um, yeah, so thank you so much, Dylan, for your
Yeah.
presentation. We just really appreciate it. It was a nice noon hour. And I know we're almost coming up on the hour. And so, Danielle, do you have any closing thoughts, comments?
Yeah, thanks everyone for attending. And it's been awesome hearing from Dylan Running Crane. Everyone go check out Dylan's Bandcamp. So, and I'll say the right. So Dylan Running Crane music.bandcamp.com. Next week is our final session for Centering Indigenous Knowledge 2025. We'll be hearing from Chris Latre and hope to see you all next week. And thank you so much, Dylan and
Yeah.
Carla.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.